Today I'll show you how to add a player tag displaying how many markers each player has found in our Find the Marker game. First, add a character rig to the workspace. We'll use this to design the tag. So we need to delete the humanoid. Open up the rig and delete the humanoid because that will remove the little rig text above the head. Add a billboard GUI to the character's head. I will name this player tag. Next, I'll add a text label into this billboard GUI, and I will change the text to say 0 out of 0 for now. We'll change this in script later. Now we want to play around with the size, so change the size of the text label to scale it to 1010. This means it will take up the full size of the billboard GUI. I'll leave a video linked in the description about scaling UI in Roblox. Then we need to adjust the size of the billboard GUI. Now adjust this to be whatever size you would like. For a billboard GUI, it should be a scale value, not an offset. So for me, I'm going to go for 4010, and that makes it a bit larger. And then we need to reposition the billboard GUI. So I'm going to, on the billboard GUI, change the studs offset, and I want it to go up, which is the Y direction. And I'm going to put that at about 2 maybe. Yep, perfect. Now you can design the text label however you would like. Now for a billboard GUI, you should always use text scaled, because as you can see, as I get further away, the text doesn't seem to scale with the billboard GUI. So you make sure you use text scaled. Other than that, design it however you would like, and I'll get back to you once I've got a design. Okay, I've got a little design here, and I've made the background transparency 1, so we don't have that background in there anymore. Once you're happy with your design, drag the player tag from the character to replicated storage. We put it here because we're going to clone it for each player and add it to each player's head once they join the game. And we can now delete the rig character. Now we need to add a new script to server script service, and I will name it tag handler. In here we need the players service, so players is game : get service players. We also need replicated storage. So replicated storage is game : get service replicated storage. And we also need the collection service. So collection service is game : get service collection service. And now just to make sure that all the tags have loaded in, all the markers have loaded in, I'm just going to add a quick wait here. And this will just make sure all the assets have loaded into the game before we run the code. This wait should be long enough. If not, you can maybe make it wait 2 seconds, for example, but that should be long enough. And then we'll just say tag equals replicated storage, wait for child, player tag. And that gets the tag in replicated storage. And we also want to store the number of tags, the number of markers in the game. So number of tags equals hashtag for the number of collection service, get tagged, marker. This will get the number of markers in the game. And then when the player joins, we're going to, when their character's loaded, clone the tag, add the cloned tag to their head, and then we'll update the text. So we'll say players.playerAdded, connect function, passing in the player that joins the game. Now we're going to use a new function we've not used in this series yet, called character added, and this is automatically fired whenever the player's character loads. So we can say player.characterAdded, connect function, and passing in the character, the player's character. Now make sure this is player and not players, because we don't want the player's service, we just want the individual player whose character is loaded. And then we'll clone the tag, so local clone equals tag : clone. Then we'll get the head, so local head is character : wait for child head. And then we'll say clone.parent equals head, and this will position the clone inside of the character's head. Next, we need to actually update the text. Now, there's going to be quite a few if statements here, because we want to make sure that everything's loaded to avoid errors. So what I'll do is, while wait 0.5 do, just every half a second, we're going to update each player's tag. We'll loop through every single player. So for underscore comma player, in I pairs, players, get player, or get players, sorry, do. We're doing the underscore because we don't need to access the index anywhere, we only need the player objects. If player.character, then, so if the player's character has loaded in, then we'll get their head. Local head equals player.character, find first child head. We don't really want to be doing wait for child here because it's in a while loop, it could get quite demanding and performance heavy. So we'll just use find first child, and we can say if head then. So if the head exists, then we'll get the tag. So local tag equals head colon find first child player tag. And this will find the player tag inside of the player's head. And if the tag exists, then we'll get the player's leader stats. So local leader stats equals player colon find first child leader stats, all lowercase. If the leader stats exists, then we'll get the found, so the number of markers they found. So local found equals leader stats colon find first child found. If the found exists, then we will update the text label. So we will say tag.text label .text equals toString found.value, so the number of markers we've found, dot, and I'll concatenate a /, dot, and then toString and the number of tags that exist. So now this will say, for example, if you've found 3, it will say 3 out of, and however many markers I have, which I think is 8 or 9. So 3 out of 8, 3 out of 9, whatever it is. Now we can close that. And finally, we need to set the NameDisplayDistance property under starter player to 0. I've already done that here. I think by default it's at 100. So just set that to 0. Because otherwise the player's name will appear above their character, which blocks our tag. So if we set it to 0, it will unblock the tag. So now if we hit test, and if I run it on 2 clients, in fact, here we go. So player 1 has got 2 out of 8 markers found, and player 2 has 3 out of 8 markers found. And they have their different tags just here. If I was to go collect another one, for example, I'm going to get player 2 to collect this purple marker, and we should see it say 4 out of 8 on their tag, and this other one will stay the same. So I can't click them. I can't collect the marker for some reason. Not sure why that is. I think it's actually because there we go. So now that one says 3 out of 8. I think it's because I've played around with the saves. And now the data might be corrupted. Now if I press this one, there we go, 4 out of 8, wonderful. So I think the reason for that problem is because my data is corrupted. I'll just double check that. If I just set a new data store quickly, and I'll just use one player, and I'll go and collect a marker. So I'll collect the same one again, just to test this out. So yeah, okay, so it does disappear. If I load back in, it should disappear again. I think it's just because when I was testing it off camera, yes, so it has disappeared. Okay, so I think I just had a bit of corrupted data there. Nothing too much to worry about. Wonderful. So that is all for this video. In the next one, we will implement an index system so that players can see which markers they have and haven't found. So check out our Discord server, which you can find the link to in the description, where we're trying to build a community of future game developers. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.